Greetings, this is Daoud from Compliance Standards, and this is part of a series where we get to know a vendor involved in ITAD, recycling, sustainability, etc. In doing so, we try to bring some transparency to our clients on the end user side who may be interested in learning more about current practices from a broader range of industry participants. So I had the pleasure to host Frank Milia, the COO of New York-based ITAMG, a company founded in 1999 on Long Island. Frank joined the company 15 years ago and is now its Chief Operating Officer. The company offers classic ITAD services such as refurbishment, parts harvesting, and recycling of technology devices, as well as on-site services like data destruction and equipment relocation for data centers. Now, as an analyst who also tracks the brand new equipment market, I was rather surprised to hear that the majority of the refurbished equipment Frank's company sells and transacts in the B2B space now consists of Windows 11 machines. He did mention, as you will hear, that those machines crossed the 50% mark a few months ago already, and it's likely closer to 70% now. I learned also that corporate buyers prioritize warranty and reliability over sort of the current technologies, including processors, for example, making refurbished Windows 11 machines a cost-effective choice. This eventually allows businesses to save around 50% compared to new equipment while still getting reliable and warranted devices. This shift highlights the growing acceptance and practicality of refurbished Windows 11 equipment and in the business sector.
So IT Asset Management Group was founded in 1999 on Long Island, not in the same real estate that we are now, but not too far. So we're about 35 miles from the center of New York City. So with typical New York traffic, that could be an hour to 3 hours, depending on what's going on. But so I came on board, it's 15 years ago at this point. And I started, shortly after the 2008 financial crisis, was doing some surveillance and IT work at a large restaurant company, did not like that work, moved away from it, took a position at this company, and was actually on the truck doing collections for a bit, and then quickly got involved with sales and marketing. And then over a decade of doing business development, focusing on marketing, then transitioned to operations. And now I lead the company as the Chief Operating Officer.
That's awesome. A company is family owned, privately owned, I'm assuming.
It's privately owned, and I'm a partner. And there's also another partner who's our Chief Revenue Officer. So took over some of the responsibilities that I had when I transitioned to the operations side. And then our CEO is the founder and majority partner of the company. In the early days, it was a lot of the opportunity that was out there. So he was involved in just working in commercial moving and office furniture. And they're in, these large banks in New York City and, removing desks or, things, related to a commercial move. And their contacts are saying, oh, by the way, the phones, yeah, just take them. And at that point, the handsets might have been worth $300 to $500.
Wow.
Handsets on desk used to be real money in this business. Now it's pretty much zero revenue for our company at this point, or close to it. Very, very small part of our revenue and reuse. So they saw opportunity to say, hey, we could be paying for this equipment, we could be selling it. So from the beginning, it was very reuse focused. A lot of the other companies were recycling it, or in some of these terrible scenarios, just throwing this kind of stuff in dumpsters at that point. So not that there weren't established electronics recyclers at that point, but they were few and far between 25 years ago compared to where we are now. And certainly the industry was not even close to as sophisticated as we've developed to at this point.
Product wise, I'm assuming you are tackling all of the standard ITAD form factors, laptops, tablets, desktops. Do you do enterprise
So
gears and devices?
we have a diverse book of business. We really cut our teeth in the corporate world. But so, we deal with all the end use equipment, all the data center equipment. We go in and remove power equipment, for full data center decommissioning. And we have a very diverse book of business that we've built over the last, 25 years, including we service very large telecom providers, public institutions, especially schools in our area or otherwise. Healthcare is a big vertical for us. So really a very large, diverse book of business. End use computing, I would say, is the largest volume of processing units, volume of units. But enterprise equipment right now, especially this year, there was a big rebound for us in the server and networking space. Driven by some of your top 5 customers is what happens in a book of business very often. If they're heavy in a refresh cycle, it might tip the scales a little bit. But I would say for the last 5 years, especially after COVID, laptop reuse and refurbishing is probably the biggest revenue generator for the firm.
It's been the case for the entire industry, right? Laptops has been the primary source of revenue and profitability for sure. You are very close to New York City. That is that a positive or a negative? I say that because it's a concentrated market for sure. Since COVID-19, there's been a decrease in the use of commercial space in the city. And so, what you may have experienced several years ago may be a little different now, or what's the dynamics that you know?
So New York City is a complicated market to operate in, but it is a huge market. So we do deal with competitors selling in from all over the country and world, saying, we can get the work done there, and they might be subcontracting, or they might have, facilities 300 miles away. So we really know how to work in New York, which makes it easy to work pretty much anywhere. So we do travel quite a lot, and in this market, being in New York, there's a lot of business in Connecticut, Boston,
Yep.
Philadelphia, and all those are very reachable to us. So we are New York centric because of how big this market is, and some of our largest customers are based in New York and New Jersey. There's also all those data centers in New Jersey, all those co-locations. So we're in and out of those quite regularly. But New York is a difficult market to physically operate in. It's an expensive market to run an ITAD. We see competitors that are doing like half of our volume, and if they're in Texas or Michigan or somewhere, they have triple the amount of space as us. So,
Yes.
it does force us to be lean and innovative and run 2 shifts and, sort material quickly and, meet SLAs for not only for our customers, but for our bottom line, because we can't have backlogs of material here. We have to be very lean and strong and quick to get the recycling out and get the reuse into inventory, and then get that reuse out of inventory and sold as quickly as possible. But activity in New York is still enormous. It's still a huge opportunity being here. Overall, I would say it's a net positive for us. New Yorkers also like speaking with New Yorkers that know where they are and
It's in the
how they
language, yeah.
operate, and
They have their own language, sure.
yeah, and we can sniff that out pretty quickly usually. If you're not from here or haven't been here for a while, there's things that you need to know to really get business done here.
So if you look at 2023, was definitely a challenging market for your peers based on the surveys that we've conducted, and the difficulty in the market is still there for many of them. Some clearly have expressed the fact that they're doing better. I mean, you've seen some of those public statements from Iron Mountain, but that's not necessarily the norm. I mean, it may be an exception because the market is still pretty dormant out there in general. What's your sense of where things are as of the first half of this year?
Yeah, so I think like everyone else, we're still dealing with, generally a depressed pricing market, both on the parts and commodity side, but certainly the reuse side, and especially in those laptops and end use computing. I think we benefit greatly. Again, we have a very diverse book of business. We have on-site shredding, on-site erasure. We have very large electronics recycling contracts. And then we are also a true certified refurbisher on e-commerce channels. So we sell on Amazon Renewed, Back Market, Walmart Restore. So we're slightly insulated compared to providers that might be very electronics recycling focused or very ITAD flipping kit focused, or maybe just networking or just servers and storage. So we have sophistication across all of those, all of those segments, and I think that benefits us greatly. I think a lot of providers saw the sort of odd pricing activity that happened, shortly or during COVID lockdowns and after COVID lockdowns, where we saw the prices of certain material, especially laptops, reuse laptops, go up for the first time ever and then stay there for a long period of time. And then the pricing, fell off the cliff, which is should have been expected by everyone. Still, it was painful if you scaled up your business according to those pricing, increases, or you possibly even locked yourself into contracts or pricing, agreements with your suppliers based on where those markets were. And if you did that for long-term, agreements, you'd find yourself in a very
Right.
difficult situation. So, we benefit from our customers are primarily exclusively corporate customers that we have longstanding relationships with that know when the market is good, they do well, and when the market is poor, we suffer together. But that proportional relationship, I think, is key to being able to weather the ups and downs that are inevitable in this space.
Is there anything you can share in terms of the company size in general?
Yeah, so we are processing over 1 million assets per year.
That's amazing.
Now, depending on what segment that's in, that could be as quick as bringing in recycling products, sorting them, and pushing them out, or full test and repair, primarily again on end-use laptops, PCs, tablets, iPhones, as well as servers, storage, and networking equipment. So it's a lean operation, again, space wise, for how many assets we do get processed. We have about 70 production employees here in New York,
Hmm.
running across 2 shifts. It's also set our real estate plan is basically multiple doors in the same campus. And because of that, we operate those 2 shifts. We have a lot of flexibility to scale up and down, ideally only up. And in the last decade, it really has only been consistently up, which we're blessed for. But essentially, with our current real estate plan, we could actually double production just based on staffing up with our current procedures. So we have a lot of good directors, middle management in place, and we really would just need to source more labor to scale those numbers up even further from where we are.
Yeah, and to your knowledge, how's the labor market in your area? I mean, is it a tough place to, find talent and people that are willing to also, work in different shifts?
Yeah, so the labor market is difficult. One of the things that has made it easier for us is that second shift. It opens up a diverse group of candidates. So it might be people in school looking to get IT on their resume for the first time. A lot of people as their second job. It's a shorter shift. People with second jobs tend to be very reliable and responsible. So that has been very strong sector for us is in our second shift. We're still dealing with difficulties in onboarding general labor, like everyone across the world at this point.
Yeah.
But I would say is it has another opportunity for us to focus on what are we doing for our employees, not just complaining, oh, there's no one out there who wants to work, right? So we've done some things to try to make it a more alluring place to work for.
Mm.
So we instituted a couple of years ago, all hourly employees are guaranteed 5% raises every year no questions asked. So if you still work here in a year and you've proven that, our assumption, and management is tasked with this, is making sure those employees have learned and grown and are bringing more value, to the business. So there's things like that. There's making sure you're paying the right wage in the market in the first place. I have seen over the years a lot of people complaining in our area, we can't find skilled labor. Fast food is paying more than we're paying. But then, you look at what their job ads are, and there's no guaranteed hours, there's no benefits, there's
Sure.
no investment in the employee development. So we provide Udemy licenses for everyone who wants one, so that they can do education outside of work, aside from things that we could use the platform to assign work inside the organization. So as challenging as it has been, it's created innovation for how to make sure we retain our employees and attract the right talent in the first place.
Yeah, and that's very important for sure. I've seen a number of companies that in the ITAD space, outside of the ITAD space, that proclaim sort of their focus on the wellness of their employees. But when you go to Indeed or Glassdoor and all these websites, they depict actually a pretty different story, right, from the employee perspective. And I agree. I think anything that you guys can do without breaking the bank, of course, would be very, very good. Um, so, in terms of your services, uh, I believe that you have your standard ITAD practices, which is number one most desirable type of business is essentially getting laptops, for example, or devices that are really in high demand in the secondary market. They undergo as fast as possible, a refurbishment, cleaning, a process, and then put into the secondary market. I think that's probably in the ITAD world, that's sort of the primary flagship product, if you will. The second is parts harvesting. The third eventually is the product is out into the recycling world. Is that essentially a summary of what you guys are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other key part of it is the on-site services. So the packaging of equipment, the collection, commercial moving services related to, whether it's a data center move where we're going to unrack the equipment, rack and stack on the other side, for the customer. We do provide on-site data destruction services. So we've gone into sites and desk to desk, wiped 500 desktops or 1,000 laptops. We have the capability to go in and on a good day, if everything goes right, we could probably erase about 10,000 hard drives in a single day. We have I don't call it proprietary, but we have a solution in house that we've built our own hardware out to do that as effectively as possible. And so we can go into the data center environment or otherwise and erase an enormous amount of drives on site. So,
And you guys are certified?
yeah, so we're NATE AAA certified for the on-site practices as well as R2V3. So we have the appendix for erasure and physical destruction. So we have 5 different shredders that we can put in front of customers for various different reasons, whether it be shred size or media type. We always want to do erasure first and reuse. It's what's better for our bottom line. It's what's better for the environment. But you have to have that solution in your tool belt, whether it's because the drives fail or there's customers that you simply cannot convince otherwise than for physical shredding on-prem.
Yeah, and to do that, Frank, you have a specialized unit that is mobile, that has equipped trucks that would go to the city and essentially do the shredding, on-site data destruction, etc.
That's right. Yeah. So it's multiple trucks that have high power generators on them that you put anywhere from a 5 horsepower to a 20 horsepower shredder on, and again shred. Actually, I think I gave you the wrong number before because I used the shredding number. It's about 10,000 drives on site for shredding is possible in a day, and 2,000 drives erasure is a good day for us. So.
What's sort of the profile of your customers? I believe you have probably a lot of commercial customers, banks, yeah, financial institutions. You've talked about a wide geography in the Northeast. You've mentioned Boston North. You probably can go further south all the way to, I don't know, maybe Washington. Is that, I mean, first, is that your geographic coverage, or do you
Uh,
go further?
so we cover continental U.S. for multiple contracts, including a
Okay.
couple in the Fortune 100. But our typical client base is Northeast or headquartered in the Northeast. Um, we tend to focus on business development in verticals where we know they're going to have the type of equipment that we want. So we don't say no to anyone. We do try to be as transparent with a customer, and we say, maybe we're not the right fit for you if this is the kind of kit you're getting rid of, or if this is the kind of service levels you want. So if you call us and you say, we have 10 pallets of miscellaneous scrap, come pick it up, give us 10 cents a pound on it, we're probably not your provider. But if there's service levels attached to it, you expect to get, detailed reporting and money back on the reuse side, and data security and compliance is important to you, then we're probably a provider that makes sense to continue the conversation. But the verticals that we've had very long-standing success with, ad agencies, media companies, banks, hedge funds, uh, healthcare. So some of the
Pretty
large
diverse.
hospitals.
Hmm.
Yeah, it is pretty diverse. Large consulting companies, and then telecommunications companies. But also we have some very important relationships with large integrators and MSPs that, those are very valuable relationships to us because
Of course.
they bring us a diverse customer base as well, and, champion us in front of their customers.
No OEMs, manufacturers.
No, not currently any OEMs.
And again, geographically, you said you're pretty much across the all the states. You have the capability. Do you do it directly with your own resources, or do you sort of work with partners across the various states?
Yeah, it's a mix. We rely on some partners for some activity. Certainly, we have vetted logistics, transport companies that are assisting with us when something is out of reach, or just doesn't make sense to do. But we regularly run our own trucks and crews west of Chicago. So it really depends on the scale and importance of the business. We have always valued keeping our faces in front of the customers as much as
Yeah.
possible. So especially when I was in sales, I regularly would be in DC, San Francisco, North
Hmm.
Carolina, wherever our customers were, to make sure my face was seen. Luckily, people do video calls now more often,
Yes. Thank
and
God.
and I'm also not customer interfacing anymore. But so just in time to lose all those frequent flyer miles. But um, it's very important that we're in front of our customers, and speaking of our getting in front of customers, I think historically our on-site crews have been the most important sales and business development people that we have at the company.
Hmm.
I think a lot of people in ITAD tend to forget that, or not value as much as from the customer side. Once the kit is out of the space, a lot of customers feel like the process is done.
Yeah.
And so that a lot of that last touch point with your point of contacts, on site is your trucker and helper, and your logistics team or your on site erasure team. So they play a critical role in representing your company, and getting what we've built the business on, which is customer satisfaction, leading to referrals, leading to the people we work with going from one company to the next, and bringing us through the door with them.
Just if you can talk to me about who are the stakeholders that you talk to when you work with enterprises, with businesses. Is it typically the IT management, the IT department, or are there other people involved in the process?
Yeah, I think usually we would go to try to find the person who has that pain point, right? So it's the IT managers, IT directors that are seeing like, "Oh, our current provider is dropping the ball. We don't get reports in a reasonable amount of time. We schedule, they don't show up. They give us a window, they show up outside the window." Because starting with the CIO would be fantastic, but that's not realistic and it's not
No.
going to happen. And also we have to be realistic about what level of importance is taking out the trash, to the IT department, because that's the way they largely see it, right?
That's right.
So there's an important thing that we do and we value it and we need to get the customer to value it. But in reality, we should be looking for the people who are dealing with the headache and telling them, if you work with us, it won't be a headache, and this is why. So as much as the CIO might sign that contract, that MSA, at the end of the day, we're probably mostly dealing with IT managers, IT directors, rarely procurement. We are not big on responding to RFPs, blind RFPs. I find it mostly to be a waste of time. You get excited that a Fortune 500 company is putting out an RFP. They have the 3 people shortlisted already. They're
Of
just,
course.
they're just asking you to put in,
It's a process, exactly.
yeah.
It's they have to do it, but at the end of the day, you're right. They probably have already someone in mind.
Yeah, so procurement is atypical, but still there every once in a while. More and more, and I'm hoping that this becomes a trend. We are talking to the security teams more often than we used to be. I think ITAD and data destruction, from the CISO's team, from the security team, has been an afterthought, or they've not been involved because it's an IT decision, it's a finance decision. And then a lot of times we're seeing that they're late to understanding, well, what's happening to this product before it ships out,
Yeah.
and who are we trusting with the data destruction and data protection, throughout that process.
Yeah, speaking of pain points, what do you think are sort of most recurring pain points and issues that really companies are most concerned lately?
Yeah, so I would say ease of use is a big one. Is it are you dealing with an ITAD that when you engage with them, you get responses in a reasonable amount of time, you get a crew on site, you get a quotation or a project scope, within a reasonable amount of time, and it's detailed oriented and makes sense to you. Um, and then I would say that meeting the other SLAs. So whether that be just getting your reports in a reasonable amount of time, getting paid in a reasonable amount of time, getting expectations clearly set, and then the provider meeting those expectations. So they gave us a quote for $100,000, and at the end of it, they paid us 50, and we don't really understand why still, and as opposed to we come in and show them, well, these are the kind of reports that you're going to get from us. This is the details on a line item basis of what is wrong with every unit, down to there's a keyboard imprint on this unit, or this unit has a dead pixel, and then the grading system that's involved with it, and an expectation of what those price depreciations are going to be, A, B to C. So I think that's one of the pain points that we see over and over again, and a lot of them are simple. A lot of providers are subcontracting a good deal of their logistics, and people who show up do not care as much as that ITAD probably cares. So it's not that they're trying to do a bad job, but
Yeah, yeah.
we've come in and we've picked up after other companies have been in our space, and they're like, the people who showed up had no pallets or moving containers, no commercial bins, no dollies. They showed up in dry loaded truck full of PCs. So aside from that taking an exorbitant amount of time and wasting this customer's time, it's an unsafe way to transport the equipment. It's going to get damaged during it, and so we've cleaned up where people are really not even getting the most basic things done, and then also all the way up to the kind of reporting we get is not detailed enough. My current provider doesn't match parent device to serial number of media of hard drive. They're not using an enterprise or erasure tool that we're comfortable with or at all. So
Yeah.
that I think that's pretty typical.
So as you look at the next several years, what are sort of the big things that you guys are working on for the future?
Well, I think first of all, I think we've done a good job of never getting too excited about anything, right? So,
Good.
as exciting as AI is, we'll never put all of our eggs in, the one basket of this is like, let's get really heavily involved in GPU liquidation and just make that the focus, right? So it's not that it's not discussed or what could we do better or what kind of rigs could we set up to test these better. I would say a lot of our focus is on employee development, continually improving our our management system performance, customer retention, through making sure we're in front of our customers and talking about what they care about. And then on the internal business revenue side, we want to make sure that we're doing everything to refurbish every part of the device that we can within reason that makes financial sense to put it back on the market. So, for instance, on the laptop side, we've been saving a ton of money by vinyl skinning keyboards instead of buying replacement keyboards or otherwise trying to repair keyboards for a few dollars. You can vinyl skin them. We're refurbishing we're refurbishing screens for laptops in house now, and just looking for more opportunities like that. The more products and parts that we can refurbish in house will lead us to using more of our inventory that may have otherwise got wholesaled, and being put into the true refurbishing sales. So we have, on the refurbishing side, we do about 50% direct to B2B channels, so direct with businesses in the United States. And then the other 50% is on those e-commerce channels. Largely Amazon is the lion's share of it, with Amazon Renewed. That being said, that is only about 20% of our end use stock. So the more sophisticated our refurbishing process becomes, the more of those units that we can push out at 2-3 times the revenue that we would potentially be getting on the wholesale market for some of those.
So you mentioned two channels. One is sort of direct B2B, and one is through third party. What's the profile of those in the B2B world, in terms of who they are, what's driving them to use refurbished systems? Full disclosure, most of my IT equipment here is refurbished, and it works perfectly fine. I mean, I even use SPSS for statistical modeling and such, and it works okay. There are probably some limitations in terms of using an older graphics cards and things like that, but in general, it works okay. But on the B2B side, what's the sort of a typical profile?
So our best customers on the B2B side are the people who were formerly buying new equipment and are buying refurbished for the first time. And the reason why I say that is we are very meticulous about the product that we put out being very high quality, really truly refurbished. It's not just cleaned up, tested, and sent out. So the units that we're sending out look like they're brand new. We put a no questions asked 1-year warranty on them. And so what we found is if we were to chase down folks that are already buying refurbished equipment, they're very cost centric. And when they evaluate us, they say, well, you cost more than our current provider, but our machines will break down less. You'll be dealing with less, warranty repairs, and the equipment looks like it's new. We regularly source refurbished equipment from our competitors to fulfill orders that, we might not have the inventory for. We bring it in and then have to refurbish it again before we send it out because it doesn't meet our standards. In some cases, we had a situation where there was French fries in the USB ports for fully refurbished, equipment. So, refurbishing, unfortunately, refurbished became a dirty word to a lot of the IT industry. And there's a lot of folks that would just, react, refurbished, I'll never do it. So we encourage them to take a sample or a demo from us, understand how we're trying to elevate, what refurbishing is. And we've gotten a lot of success. So there's not really specific verticals. K through 12 is the biggest growing for us, but it's also because it's not where we focused on in the early days of us sending out our refurbished equipment. So a lot of car dealers, small medical offices, but COVID also changed what the customer profile looked greatly, because during those early days, companies were buying used equipment, they were buying refurbished equipment, and companies who would have never thought about buying refurbished before, much larger institutions, were open to it because they had no choice. There was no other stock of new equipment. We've retained a lot of those customers because they came out of that and said, well, we were saving 50%, during a time where you couldn't buy anything, and we were still buying it for 50% of what we were sourcing new for. And it's been working for us. So why wouldn't we continue doing this at least, to some degree?
Yeah, so the market for brand new PCs has been going through about nine consecutive quarterly drops in terms of growth rates. So we're talking about a little over 2 years of really not much going on. Prior to that, obviously, COVID was a stimulant for the market for sure. Um, is that the case from your understanding of, seeing people buying these refurbished secondhand PCs, that the technology is good enough to to make the usage experience pretty decent, that you really don't have to spend there's really not much out there, perhaps except in a year or so from now, AI. But the technology that you guys are refurbishing, warrantying, putting back into the market is good enough for most usage model.
That's right. And most of the refurbished equipment that we're selling, the certified refurbished equipment, are Windows 11 machines already. So we've already crossed the 50% mark a few months ago. And I think it's probably closer to 70% already of refurbished equipment going out is Windows 11. And I think for most of these corporate buyers, the processor, technology, platform is less important than the warranty and reliability aspect of it. So when they're purchasing from a provider like us, who's giving them a 1 to 3 year warranty, depending on what they select, 1 year minimum, they're just doing the math and saying this makes sense for our organization or not, to save 50%, from new equipment. So I think most of what we do now, right, are Zoom calls like this, web applications, CRM, QuickBooks Online, whatever these businesses might be using. So a 5 year old machine, even, as long as you know it's going to be reliable and warranted, I think it makes it easier for these organizations to make that decision to go with refurbished.
Yeah, and the number you shared with us, Frank, is pretty phenomenal. I mean, most of what you're putting back into the market is powered with Windows 11.
Most of the B2B
That's right.
certified refurbished. That's correct. So e-commerce is probably under that significantly,
Yeah,
and certainly wholesale, by a large margin.
definitely.
But that's correct. Yeah, most of the machines that we're shipping now are Windows 11.
How old are they? Well, they're probably what, coming out of, well, not really out of lease, because out of lease you don't have visibility into that market, right? End of lease would mean that you have relationships with leasing companies.
Yeah, so
So, mhm.
any eighth gen, I series processor. Well, I shouldn't say any, but most eighth
Most,
gen
yeah.
processors will make it. So at this point, you're talking about 5 year old machines.
And
I'm not mistaken.
from your perspective, your business model is you don't buy those system outright from the customer. You do share revenue, or you have a combination of both.
It's a combination of both, but vast majority is ongoing relationships with the customers and ongoing contracts governed by like an MSA. But we do go out to bid. We have customers that I don't want to say source us, but we have customers that even though um, they'd rather choose us alone and not bid it out, they might have a mechanism in their business that requires to bid it out. So they bid it out every
Right.
time, and then they keep the list the same way, and we keep winning the awards. So, but it's few and far between compared to just our ongoing relationships. That is where we source the equipment from.
And how do you characterize demand for these secondhand or these refurbished products, particularly the Windows 11? I mean, are these systems that you have to make an effort to find a buyer, or is the market hot?
So I wouldn't call the market hot. That's for sure. I would say it's onboarding B2B customers to buy refurbished is still an uphill battle, for sure. We do pretty solid client acquisition on that side. The wholesale market, I think the pricing is really what is the teller on that. So the fact that the pricing has not really rebounded still, if anything, we just see certain things still falling off the cliff, would show us that the market is probably not hot, and the global economics that are driving that, right, is just you have more unemployment, less investment in businesses, a generally uneasy
Hmm.
global economic
Sure.
situation. So but that being said, wholesale commodity or reuse sales is in general not very difficult in this space because you're moving the products to other businesses that are making money on that product. So there's always going to be significant competition to buy from us, especially we're on the higher side of people that these buyers want to work with. If you're selling thousands or hundreds of thousands of units at a time, you will get more interested parties at higher price levels than the folks that are trying to sell hundreds of units at a time. So the larger your packages of equipment, the higher competition there's going to be. So we do
Yeah.
benefit from that as well.
Yeah, no, my question was sort of tied to what we typically hear about Apple products, for example. Apple products
Okay.
tend to be high demand,
Yes.
especially if they're all 3, 4 years old. They're usually pretty good, but that's not necessarily the case with other brands or other types of products. There is demand, but you have to qualify it.
Yeah, and you make a good point there too. Thinking about Windows 11 machines, if we can't fulfill a business-to-business order and we have to go try to source those same Windows 11 machines, once someone knows you need something, the price goes up, right? So,
Yeah,
there are situations where trying to get that, ninth or 10th generation machine is going to be very expensive and very difficult to accomplish, especially at any sort of scale. And certainly Apple equipment, it starts out more expensive, so it and the end of life, you're going to get higher value returns on it. But we're also seeing M1 and M2 Apple devices regularly now, and those are, and also iPhones. So a large percentage of what's going to be sold on e-commerce are those more consumer-friendly products.
hmm,
We only deal with business-grade machines, except for if you don't include Apple into that mix. The vast majority
right.
of our customers are large enterprises. We're dealing with the Latitudes and Precisions, um, the Elite Books, and so on. Um, but when the Apple equipment comes in, that you're now open to the entire, uh, body of buyers, civilians. It doesn't necessarily have to be businesses, and especially iPhones. So yeah, the demand there is very large for sure.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. So earlier we talked about your concerns for these latest technology or lack of concern for these technologies. What about the technologies that you are using within your site? The ones that deal with, I don't know, demanufacturing, disassembly, sorting, etc. What are you seeing that would, you know, uh, sort of impact the way you operate an ITAD facility?
So I think a number of things, and I'm in general an optimist about AI and machine learning, and I think there's going to be opportunities for us to integrate some of these tools. I'll give you one example. So the way I could see AI integrating with our current ERP system is if you think about the uh, how equipment gets sorted at those initial stages, right? It
Hmm.
hits your dock, it gets weighed in, and now mixed material gets pushed to the next stage where a human being has to physically sort those items into the next stage, the byproduct type, and push it down the assembly line. At least that's how it works, at most places, including ours. Um, what is driving, can I recycle this, or does this go to the next stage to be tested, wiped, erased, and put into inventory? So, organizations that want to cut costs, we want to push to recycling as soon as we know, but we don't
Hmm.
want the risk of items getting recycled that could have had value or we're paying a customer for. We have an upfront agreement that we're going to pay a customer for material, and then someone who's been working for the company 30 days puts it on the recycle pallet. So we have mechanisms in place now where in our system there's equipment that's whitelisted or blacklisted or however you want to say it. it's looked up by different criteria. The system will tell you, whether you're keeping or not. That being said, that being powered by AI. So when that system fails for some reason, right, it's a new product that we've never seen before. Someone can't identify what it is. We have offline systems, basically messaging through the sales team, through Teams. What are we doing with this product? Quarantining until decisions made, and then so on. There's an opportunity where AI could, help run decision making.
Hmm.
For ITADs. I don't see us getting to the point where we're doing machine learning for dismantling or things like that. That's probably the ultimate disposition, companies, the guys that are downstream from
Sure.
us where we send our products to. But I think like most organizations, we're already dipping our toe into AI.
Yeah.
Our ticketing and support system has AI native in its tool where you can ask the ticket questions and it will tell you what happened. So I said, how did this support ticket get closed? And it will automatically give you a rundown of who closed it and when and why. So instead of having to read through the ticketing system, you can just query the native AI tool. And then, on a sales and marketing side or social media side, I personally use ChatGPT for almost all my copy.
Sure.
I'll dictate into a note on my phone while I'm driving, and then when I get home, push that into ChatGPT and clean it up and send it out. So I think there's things to be wary of, right? Not sharing too much data inside these tools. Training across your organization to again, not put IP or sensitive data into this into ChatGPT or otherwise. But overall, I'm an optimist that it'll, help us drive innovation. And I think it'll also help us from the customers that we source from, because I think it's a large opportunity for businesses to scale back a little bit of their off-siting of equipment. They're going to want more processing power on-prem. So I think more processing power on-prem at our customer locations. Maybe they're building their own language models to solve whatever business problems that they have. More computing on-prem for us is a good thing.
Yep.
As the life cycle will continue, and it's going to be a major driver for sure for hardware. I don't think it's necessarily going to be the boom that we may want it to be, but I'm sure it'll be something significant for the ITAD space.
What's your thinking about growth going forward? Obviously, internal discussions on where the company ought to be 5 years from now are probably a permanent fixture of any business, really. Um, what are you guys looking to do? Are you looking to grow, looking to grow organically, looking to do acquisitions, looking to be acquired?
Yeah, so I mean, I think our philosophy is the same and unchanging on this, which is slow, organic, incremental growth that is sustainable. So if we can grow 20% a year over year, that is great growth.
Good
And
number.
also being hyper focused on that growth, paying dividends, and being
Of course.
profitable growth. So I think. We operate like a startup in some ways, for sure. Like we are very uh, growth focused for sure, and we're always trying to find new opportunities to maximize what we already have. So it's got to be a mix. We want customer acquisitions on both sides of the business to continue at this pace, and then we should see those goals being met. It's a marathon, not a sprint, in this space for sure. It really is about maintaining those relationships. I mean, we have relationships for literally 24 or 25 years from the very beginning. Our customer retention, I think, in the ITAD space in general is an anomaly in the IT space. I think the average MSP client is like less than 3 years. I don't know what it is for ITAD, but for us, it's more than double that for sure is our client retention.
Yeah,
So
our data shows that companies tend to be very loyal to their ITAD supplier, and I think it's probably a function of uh, not paying too much attention.
yeah,
If it's not broken, don't fix it
yeah, it's a
type of
double-edged
thing.
sword for us. Yeah, because you have customer loyalty, and that's great, and you want that for retention. But it
Yeah,
also makes it difficult to onboard new customers because
yeah,
even if
right.
someone is not a certified or sophisticated provider or doing the things that we want to do, um, it's hard to win away that customer because they're like, well, they're nice guys. They show up, they take the equipment, it's
Yes,
gone. I
yes,
never see it again. Everything's fine.
absolutely, and that's that it's both a good thing and a bad thing, like you suggested for sure. It creates a sense of stability. On the other hand, that stability is based on fake expectations, and that's or dangerous expectations if you don't pay attention to what's being done, and so that makes sense. In terms of, and I promised earlier was the last question, but in terms of the immediate competition with you guys, how's the competitive landscape in your area? And we're not talking about sort of broad ITAD world, but let's say in the New York area in the Northeast, how's the competition there?
I think there's a lot of sophisticated, well-performing providers in the space around us. And also we're dealing with every person in the country selling into this market because of the allure of this market and just the opportunity in this market is so large. But I think we're dealing with what the kind of competition that every person in the space is dealing with, where you have someone who's just starting off in their garage all the way up to the OEM selling this as a service. So there's more certified providers than ever, which I think is great. I think the next challenge is for us to help customers differentiate the difference between the certified providers, because
Yeah, yeah.
they're not all created equal. We all have different core competencies. So we do see businesses marketing things that they're not certified for. It's R2V3, and they're going to market that they can do something that they're not certified in the appendix for. To expect a customer in 2024 to understand that is unrealistic, right? So it's difficult to really create a fair playing field, even with other certified providers. So.
Yeah, by the way, I love your logo. It kind of reminds me of a German brand out there. I think I can't remember which one. It may be
The Mercedes.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly, exactly.
yeah.
What's the thinking behind it? How did you guys come up with that logo?
Well, the thinking behind the logo was companies, people really struggled with saying the acronym for the company, so the ITAMG, and so they
That's
they would
good.
call it ITAM, ITAMG. So we redid the logo, and the direction on it was to segment the letters in some way. So the IT is sitting on its own, and then there's the IMG. So, as far as the IT white lettering
Yes.
is inside the green box, and it's supposed to help a little bit with that. So from a branding perspective, the company name is pretty rough. IT Asset Management Group is a mouthful, and then you change it to
Yeah.
ITAMG, and that's still, pretty difficult. But we'll use it sometimes. We'll make fun of ourselves that the name is a little rough, and then move
Yeah,
on.
yeah, absolutely. Frank, thank you so much. It's been very educational as far as I'm concerned, and you've certainly confirmed a number of trends that I've been seeing based on similar discussions. And again, thank you very much for your contribution.
I appreciate the time you took today.